Can one handwritten note turn an empire upside down? One whispered boardroom comment spark a royal earthquake? Imagine waking up as a duchess, adorned in jewels and public adoration, then hearing the word revoked. That's what this feels like. In the blink of an eye, Meghan Markle's status, once polished and powerful, now threatens to unravel. Somewhere behind palace doors, Prince Harry reportedly uttered words that shifted everything. Meghan no longer represents us. I couldn't keep defending her. Now the world watches as royal privileges, titles, public perceptions, once solid as crown jewels, seem to be dissolving. What really happened? And what does it mean for Meghan, Harry, and the British monarchy? Strap in. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Before the tiaras and palace gates, Meghan was an American actress with charm, ambition, and a story that seemed to promise change. She starred in Suits, she launched foundations, she spoke about empowerment. Then came 2018. The wedding. The global spotlight. Suddenly, Meghan Markle became not just a star, but a symbol. A symbol of modern royalty, hope, reform. She married the Duke of Sussex, stepped into its traditions and expectations, and the world held its breath. But here's the twist. Entering the royal fold meant trading some of that freedom she built for the weight of expectation. The cameras never stop. The tradition looms large. The duty demands more than a red carpet smile. Meghan had to navigate being a celebrity and a duchess, glamour and protocol, authentic voice and required silence. And somewhere between silver screen and palace anteroom, friction began to build. So why does this matter now? Because when someone ascends that high and platforms themselves on change, every misstep is magnified, and when the throne looms, the margin for error shrinks. What if the very qualities that years ago made Meghan a fresh face of royalty became, in the wrong environment, perceived as defiance? Stay tuned, because we're about to trace that line between inspiration and insubordination and see where she may have crossed it. Duchess of Sussex, Her Royal Highness. The brand, the privileges, the aura. These aren't just headlines. They're legal, public, and symbolic constructs. But the system has fine print. When Meghan and Harry stepped back in 2020 from senior royal duties, they agreed to relinquish public funds and no longer use certain styles in commercial contexts. Here's the kicker. The agreement didn't mean Meghan lost all her titles. In fact, she still holds the Duchess of Sussex style. What did change was the access, the roles, the privileges. But rumors of a full stripping of titles have swirled, particularly after the precedent set with Prince Andrew, who recently lost styles and honors. Newsweek. So what does stripping of titles actually look like? Removal of the HRH honorific. Removal of privilege to represent the monarchy. Official removal of dukedom or peerage. These acts send a message: you're no longer in the fold. Direct question to you. If you had built a brand around a title, public, private, symbolic, how would you react if someone tried to take it away? Would you fight? Or let it go? Because that's the terrain Meghan now inhabits. And here's where the curiosity gap widens. What triggered the move from possible scrutiny to full-blown revocation? What argument did Harry make so compelling that the palace might act? I'll get to that next, and you're going to want to read on. Rumor has it, deep inside the palace, Prince Harry turned point man. He allegedly drafted a letter, confidential, blunt, irreversible. Meghan no longer represents us. I cannot keep defending her. If true, those words were more than personal, they were structural. They shifted Meghan's standing not just publicly, but within the institution. Why would Harry do this? Some say it's loyalty to the monarchy. Others insist it was a pressure valve. He couldn't bear the conflict any longer. Whatever the motive, the result was a rupture. The optics, a prince disavowing his own wife's representation of the family's brand. That's seismic. And yet, there is no publicly verified letter. That may matter less than the speculation itself. Because rumors of breakdown, of betrayal, of internal war create their own reality in media, reputation, and negotiation. For Meghan, this move, real or alleged, changed how she is perceived inside those walls and outside them. Emotional truth. Imagine discovering someone you trust has gone behind your back and redrawn the boundaries of your world. That's the place Meghan apparently found herself. And now the palace machinery is responding, quietly but deliberately. What does this mean for Meghan's brand? How does one rebuild when the foundation shifts overnight? Next, we'll look into the ripple effects on her empire and the warning signs she may have ignored. Brand is everything. Meghan built a globally resonant one: philanthropy, activism, fashion credibility, strong public voice. But that brand was interwoven with her royal status. A title amplified her impact. Lose the title, or have it publicly questioned, and the ripple is immediate. An example: the recent usage of HRH, the Duchess of Sussex, on a personal gift card to a friend. It's a small act, a handwritten note, but it sparked reportage, backlash, and questions about compliance with prior agreements. People.com. The detail matters. Actionable tip: if your brand leans on symbolic authority, always inventory your dependencies. If the throne goes away, what remains? For entrepreneurs. If you rely on one influencer, one platform, one title, what happens if that changes? Build resilience. In Meghan's case, suggestions are that some brands and media partners are recalculating. Projects may get reevaluated. Collaborations may wobble. What was once an asset, royal privilege, can mutate into risk. Relatable challenge: ever had your job title changed or downgraded and felt the mirror of self-worth crack? That's what happens at scale when royalty is involved. But the emotional terrain is strangely familiar. And here's where the curiosity sharpens. What happens when your title is still nominally yours, but your privileges are gone? And when your partner may have told the palace you're no longer representing them? The next section dives into how the palace may be positioning itself and Meghan's possible options. The palace is an institution built on centuries of precedent, protocol, and optics. When confronted with what many see as a risk: internal dissent, public scandal, eroding authority, it launches forks of response. Quiet letters, internal memos, public statements, strategic leaks. Earlier this year, royal observers noted discussions about whether Meghan and Harry's titles might be at risk. Newsweek. The ripple from Prince Andrew's stripping of titles served as a test case. The message: no one is untouchable. But unlike Andrew, Meghan's situation is far more complex. She has a massive global profile, a business brand, and substantial media leverage. What might the palace be asking? Questions like: does Meghan still reflect the institution's values? Does her representation add or subtract from monarchy brand equity? Is her title more burden than benefit? This is where power meets strategy meets perception. If the answer trends negative, the palace may decide the risk outweighs the prestige. And if Harry really conveyed that Meghan no longer represents them, which insiders allege, that may have been the tipping point. Analogy: imagine a company endorsing a celebrity ambassador, then discovering their behavior could damage the brand. At some point, the company issues a press release and ends the deal. The monarchy may see titles similarly. If the palace moves to strip Meghan of titles, when does it happen? What are the legal mechanisms? And what will her next step be? Fight? Accept? Rebrand? We're entering uncharted territory. What does Meghan do now? She has essentially three paths, and they're not mutually exclusive. Fight. Launch a legal challenge. Protect her brand. Demand rights. But that path risks public spectacle, more leaks, more internal rupture. Flight. Shift entirely to brand and business outside the UK. Build a post-royal identity. Lose the royal privileges, but craft autonomy. Rebrand. Accept change. Recast the title's meaning. Emphasize new ventures, philanthropic agenda, the ex-royal narrative. Actionable tips for you. If you face a change in your role or brand, think: how much is tied to title? How much is tied to substance? Build a Plan B, brand foundation independent of the label. Prepare for scenario shifts, image crisis, institutional decision-making, public perception swings. Relatable anecdote: imagine you're the VP of a major division in a company, and overnight, the division gets spun off and renamed. You still work there, but your title means less. You need to ask, what value do I bring versus the label? For Meghan, her team reportedly is already considering such contingencies. After recent stories about her fear of losing titles and scrambling for replacement connections. Geo News. The possibility of a transition strategy seems in motion. But here's the next twist. While Meghan plans, the palace may already be acting. Leaks, internal memos, subtle preparation of the public. And as all parties shift, the narrative war broadens into business, legacy, media control, and global branding. At first glance, this may read like celebrity tabloid fare, but the implications are deeper. Cultural narrative. Meghan's story touches on modern royalty, image management, identity, and media power. When an institution strips titles, it signals values, not just to the family, but to the world. Brand theory. The phenomenon shows how titles, institutions, and privileges underpin influence. When they're removed or challenged, the shifting authority reshapes outcomes. Business lesson. Whether royal or corporate, public figures reliant on affiliation with larger institutions risk structural collapse when the affiliation is revoked. Human story. This is also the story of a woman whose identity is under attack, not just from tabloids, but possibly from the institution she joined. It raises questions around autonomy, symbolism, assimilation, and backlash. Direct question for you. When you lose something you believe defined you, your title, your role, your credential, what then defines you? Are you defined by the label or by your actions beyond it? Meghan's journey forces us to ask that. And as titles teeter and privileges vanish, the fallout isn't just about wardrobe or manor houses. It's about identity, power, legacy. In the next section, we'll pull it all together and talk about what's next for Meghan, for the royals, and maybe for all of us. So what happens tomorrow? What headlines should we expect? Here's a possible timeline. Short term, weeks/months leaks about internal correspondence, palace decision-making, brand partner reactions. Public perception sways. Midterm, 6-12 months possible official removal of titles or styles, legal threats, public statements from Meghan or Harry. Long term, 1-2 years Meghan's post-royal brand either solidifies, business, philanthropy, media, or weakens under loss of institutional backing. The monarchy further streamlines, showing other princes and princesses in or out. Actionable takeaway. If you are building your own brand, always layer your identity. Differentiate who you are beyond your title or affiliation. Future-proof yourself, because power structures shift. And for Meghan, the moment of reckoning is here. The title may still linger on paper, but the privileges, the representational role, the institutional support, it's slipping. She must decide, will she fight, pivot, escape, or rebuild? Now pause. Think about your own life. Where does your identity lie? In your role, your title, your job, your team? If that changes unexpectedly, what will you still know about yourself? From Hollywood lights to palace halls, Meghan Markle's journey has been extraordinary. But now the storm is real. The indication is clear. She may be stripped of the very titles and privileges that once elevated her prestige. Because in the end, the monarchy operates not just on love and tradition, but on control, clarity, and symbolic power. And as one door closes, another may open. For Meghan, this moment could redefine her, not as the Duchess, but as a brand, a voice, a person standing on her own. Here's your call to action. Let's flip the narrative. Share this article. Discuss it. Ask the questions aloud. What does title mean in your life? What happens when it changes? Post your thoughts in the comments or on social media. Tag someone who's defined themselves by a label and ask them, if it changes, who are you then? Because one thing is certain, titles fall, privileges fade, but the story you tell about your